Right, welcome back to New Day, and the papers are ready this morning, all of them, talking about the budget. Daily Guide says Asempa budget dazes NDC, carry jubilating Kumasi. That's the story captured on pages 3 and 6. And then AG tightens charges against JB killers, Akufo-Addo's Gov states. The Daily Graphic 2017 budget, government initiates major tax cuts to stimulate growth. Comes with a photograph of Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta with a brown bag on his way to the Chamber of Parliament. And other stories here, budget can't achieve target. That's according to the minority, the ranking member here, his photograph. And then it says, and put Ghana beyond aid. That's the story. The Ghanaian Times, Asempa budget offers tax reliefs. The key highlights are listed on the front page of the Ghanaian Times. Also on the front page here, Boston home inmate jailed for possessing weed. 9 injured as NPP NDC supporters clash over lorry terminal. That's in Kumasi. And 60th Independence Anniversary special pullout. Sure, they are not going to press on Monday, and so all that is ready today. The BNFT says budget 2017 Ofori-Atta lays out good news roadmap. That's the story. And then 3.3 billion windfall from energy levies. Government pledges to complete Western Railway lines. These are all stories on the Business and Financial Times. The Finder says 58.1 billion business-friendly budget. One district, one factory to create 350,000 jobs. And the minority have reacted to the budget. Tax cuts in budget deceptive, populist. That's according to Mr. Ato Forson, the former finance minister. And the low cost to enjoy 70% of government projects procurement. And finally, the Independent has a huge photograph of the finance minister there and says abolished taxes spark euphoria. The story is captured on page 2 of the paper. My guest this morning to do the talking, Member of Parliament for Bongo and member of the NDC communication team, Mr. Edward Bah. Good morning, and hope you're doing great.
I'm great, right.
Thank you for joining us. And then Dr. Muntaka Lolo is a member of the NPP, also to my left. Good morning, too.
Good morning.
I hope you're doing good.
Good.
Thanks so much for joining us. Now, it's going to be an all-our budget, and of course, every paper has it. Let's start this way. Dr. Lolo, so it finally came out, and the finance minister christened it the Asempa budget. A brief comment as to the overall purpose of this budget and how you see it.
Well, as you can clearly see, the whole nation was very happy. Everyone jubilating. Even our friends from the other side, they were all happy with the budget, the presentation in the budget. Because of the policies being laid out by the finance minister, and it carries the vision of the MPP. You see, the vision of the MPP is to develop the private sector, encourage growth in the country through the private sector, and all these policies are put in place to make sure the private sector is developed so that the country will grow. And those are my initial comments.
Your initial comment, I'm grateful. Mr. Bawan, so finally it was out. Every Ghanaian was looking up to the budget because government says let's wait for the budget. It was out yesterday. Your initial comments on the overall effect of what you were told in Parliament yesterday.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers. My initial comments basically will be that we had a lot of deception. We had contradictions, particularly when it comes to what the president said 11 days ago and what the finance minister said on certain figures. And to a very large extent, the poor and the vulnerable were neglected in this particular budget. And in the course of the discussion, we will look at them specifically. Because if you look at basically the areas they targeted, of course, there were some winners in this budget. I wouldn't deny that. But there were a lot of them who were also left out. And we'll be discussing them as we go on.
I'm grateful for that. Now, let's jump into the very details of the budget. And Dr. Alolo alluded to the fact that there were a lot of excitement yesterday. And we'll begin to dissect the budget, looking at the various taxes. 1% special import levy, duty on spare parts eliminated, 17.5% VAT, NHIL also replaced by 3% for traders. We're told of that levy for Kayaye abolished, excise duty on petroleum removed, on and on and on and on. Dr. Alolo, let me start with you. Some have said that these are indeed great things to be done to get the businesses to begin to work again. That's according to the NPP. But for some, the key one that they wanted taking off, the energy sector levy, remained, and so it's for them it seemed to have submerged the whole celebration.
No. It didn't, and there's no way that could have submerged the whole celebration. If you look at the taxes that we propose to implement, that is after it's been passed by Parliament,
right,
there are a lot of reliefs to different sectors of the economy. So to a large extent, those reliefs will cushion down the pressure the energy sector levy puts in the economy. And you look at the energy sector as well, there are some components of the energy sector levy that were reduced. We've reduced actually about 5%. And this is going to be something that is progressive. Likely that next budget, some aspect of it could be reduced as well. It wasn't left out. The public lighting was reduced to about 3% or so, and we reduced about 5% in the
How would you react to the concerns that the energy sector levy actually scrapped this public lighting you are talking about?
It's part of the, I have the energy sector levies accounts here, and
the concerns are that this public lighting was taken over by the energy sector levy, and so
yes,
it is not there at all for...
It's a component of the ESLA, the energy sector levy. It's one of the components which we have reduced from 5% to about 3% or so. It's part of it. I have the energy sector reports here, if you can have a look, and we have the public lighting levy, which is part of the reports. So which aspect of it was taken out? And that is what we have reduced.
Does this then suggest that we consumers would see some relief with tariffs?
Yes, they will. They will, because there's been a reduction in the tariff. So it will translate to reduction in tariffs to some extent. There will be a percentage reduction in tariff, which is a relief to the consumers, really. So I don't know what's people are complaining about with regards to the energy sector.
Not really complaining, but these were things that we were expecting. Now, the argument is that these other taxes that were taken off were not the key thing. I mean, they were not in contention. The main contention was that the energy sector levy would go so that people would see real relief with electricity tariffs.
All these taxes will bring in real relief in the economy, in the country. All the taxes that have been proposed will bring in relief. And the energy sector levy is part of it. That is why we have reduced some aspects of it. We haven't scrapped the levy, but we have reduced some aspect of it to bring in relief to the general citizenry of the country. Yeah.
Let me quickly go to Mr. Bauer. Now, Mr. Bauer, these are indeed what some businesses have described as the way forward. The taxes on financial services they felt was not needed. Taxes on domestic airline, taxes on import levies and all that. These are all what businesses said we needed to create that environment for us to progress and move on. What do you make of the removal of these taxes and Dr. Alolo's suggestion that it will give the relief that people are looking for?
Yeah, thank you very much. Right. First, it is important that we begin to even assess the data that is available to us. You remember that I said that part of this thing clearly indicated some levels of contradictions.
Right.
When the president came to the floor of Parliament, there were certain figures he threw out there. The minority challenged those figures. The finance minister comes and gives different figures and gives you a fair idea about what we're talking about. If you remember, the president came and indicated that, for example, interest payments amounted to 14.1 billion. The finance minister comes 10 days after and says that it was 10.8 billion. This is a huge margin. And this is what the president came. And this was somebody who was speaking to Ghanaians through parliament. The president comes and says our deficit in terms of cash basis was 9%. Then a few days later, you have the finance minister at the Stanbic and then graphic business breakfast. Indicates that it was 8.6 or 8.5. Then you have the finance minister come yesterday to say it was 8.7. So you have figures being thrown out there. You have, in terms of debt to GDP, the president comes and says, because 1 percentage point is huge.
I was going to ask you,
yes,
because some have argued that maybe these are
they are not. They are not.
74, 70,
look,
plus.
You tell me, for example, that in terms of interest payments, the cost of interest payments, you tell me that it's 14.1 billion. Somebody says 10.8 billion. That's almost a difference of about 3 billion. It is not a child's play. So these are no figures that you say they are just negligible. But let's grant, I'm just trying to tell you sometimes some of these figures that they threw out there. And so, I mean, I would want to trust my president when he's talking. And so when he gives figures, I want to trust them because he has been fed with the right figures. But I just wanted to show those contradictions. But see, back to what you indicated. You see, when people were going into this, waiting for this budget, there were a lot of expectations. And I know the media, even the day before that, had brought us certain areas that we thought were issues that were of concern. Primary on these particular concerns had to do, for example, with the corporate tax. You remember the corporate tax, they had indicated, even during their campaign, and if you listen to their rhetoric during the vetting and other things, that they were going to reduce corporate tax. And indeed, the figures
20% from 25.
To 25 to 20%. Yesterday, corporate tax was not mentioned. They have rather postponed it to somewhere 2018. There's a 2018 they'll look at it. But as we speak now, that has not been done. So in terms of
a 4-year mandate.
No, but the question is no. The issue is that if you have 4-year mandate, you had indicated in your decision that you were going to scrap it.
Yes, but
we didn't
say it was going
when
to
you're talking, I didn't interrupt. When you're talking,
say it was going to be
no.
But let's
Let me make my point.
I'll give you a chance to react.
So corporate tax was one. Now you come to the issue of and because we're looking at job creation. So within that same context, you talk about the energy sector levy. You ask him a question. You see, you don't scrap taxes that do not exist. And I'll tell you why. The levy for street lighting, the levy for NES, that's the National Electrification Scheme, were all consolidated under the energy sector levy. There was no indication in the energy that the energy sector levy had been reduced. But you go on to single out components of it, which is not, and you made them look as if they were standalone taxes or levies, and say you had scrapped them. This is the deception I was talking about.
Dr. Alolo is suggesting that the public lighting is still in the energy sector.
No, but look, you have a component that is, say, X percentage, or maybe X amount as levy on as part of your taxes and levies. If you are taking off, for example, you are saying that the the NES was being reduced from 5% to 3%. And it's going to affect the cumulative figure of the energy sector levy. Why do you take that one out to talk about it? Because the energy sector levy itself, as it stands now, per what he said, has not been reduced. You understand the point I'm making? So this is one area that I felt that, and you see, you have government has control over certain things, has no control over certain things in terms of cost of energy. If you look at the tariffs, normally tariffs are set based on the type of fuel you have used. So it gives whether it's gas or crude oil. Right. Cost of maintenance, those things are things that government may not have control over because government does not determine the prices of these things. But government has control over taxes and levies that are slapped on these things. You had indicated that cost of energy was huge for industry. And so you were going to do something about it. You end up not reducing corporate tax. You end up not reducing cost of energy. And at the same time, you think that you are giving relief to the corporate world. I had a challenge with that. And this is this is a group of people who are losing out. You talk about, again, and as we go, because you're talking about the taxing, you talked about the airlines. Taking about 17.5% from, in terms of the tickets, the domestic airlines. Right. Look, let's look at our population. How many of us fly as compared to using road transport? How many of us fly? And I'm going to tell you why. You see, because you had a special petroleum tax, which was 17.5%, that they had indicated that they were going to take off. They never took it. What they did was to reduce it to 15%. Your mother and my mother in the village will not go to the airport to fly. they'll go to VIP, they'll go to new plan, say, to do. If you really want to cushion people, so you realize that the people they cushioned were people who can, after all, afford.
But hold on, I come back to you, but let me get Dr. Alolo to react. You said earlier that these taxes, from where you sit, clearly brings relief to people. Now, he says, for instance, that you talk about job creation. Now, corporate tax, if you had reduced it, would have given more room for companies to expand. Now, this energy levy, AGI is even complaining that the cost of energy is high, and if it had been reduced, it would allow these companies to expand and pick in more people. And so, Mr. Bauer's argument is that indeed, there is no relief anywhere, and that kind of job creation that you talk about cannot be met by this kind of reliefs.
Just to respond to Honorable Bauer, with regards to corporate tax, it was promised in our manifesto,
right?
But we never said we were going to implement it in the first year.
That's true.
And it's going to be something that is going to be progressive. It's going to be done. We've mentioned that it will be done from next year. We're going to reduce it from 25% to 20%. So that will be done. To make things clear, we never promised it will be done in the first year, and we have 4 years. We have a 4-year term. So all our policies, I promise you that will be fulfilled within the 4-year term. That is just to respond to that. With regards to the energy sector levy, when you have different components of levies consolidated as one, and you reduce some components of it, would it not reduce the total percentage of the levy? It will. So the levy will be reduced. We have this component, and we have the public lighting. Like I said, I have the energy sector report here, and the public lighting is a component of it. So that component has been reduced, and obviously it will reduce the total percentage of the levy, which will bring relief to Ghanaians. That is reduced. I don't know what Honorable is talking about when he says we haven't reduced anything. It's a component of the levy.
Look, your source document for making is the same statement that the Minister of Finance read. So you have not said anything different. We are saying that.
But that is the official government.
What we are saying, what we are saying is that you have the ESLA, which is an aggregate of all the energy sector levies.
It's a component of it. Aggregate.
So
we have reduced that.
So why? Okay. Excuse me. So the point is this: you have the ESLA. Let's say the levy is X. You want to reduce the levy, the ESLA. You can reduce the ESLA. You not take you take out one thing that does it, because in any case, if you take your bill now, there's nothing there as street light levy on street lighting.
It's part of the
ESLA. Yes, it's part of, yes. So it is ESLA. So it is not there. It doesn't exist.
Let's agree that from what you just said, we can have tariffs reduced. Do we know how much the consumer is likely to benefit from this abolition of the public lighting and on their tariffs?
I can't tell exactly how much, but it's a computation. Once the reduction is put in the formula, it will bring the relief, the amount of money that consumers will be relieved of. I don't have that exactly.
You can't give us a rough figure.
I can't give a rough figure, but I know it will bring relief because a portion of it has been reduced. And the public lighting, like I said to Honorable, it's a component of the ESLA. And when you take your bill, the ESLA is part of it, and a component of it has been reduced. Automatically, that will bring down the levy that you used to pay. If you are paying 1 cedi, it will definitely come down. If a component of it has been reduced, it will definitely come down.
I see.
To imagine relative
but I just want us, before we move on to maybe another area within the budget that you want us to discuss, I just want it to be made clear that, you see, for me, there's always a rationale behind introducing something. And if you criticize something, there should be a reason why you criticize. You do remember that they ran out to the elections at Manchagona when His Excellency the President, then candidate, indicated that the cost of electricity was higher than that of rent. You remember that famous statement he made. Clearly indicated that in his priorities, tariff was something he needed to deal with. If you come and tell me that based on what the scrapping of non-existent taxes and levies,
which is non-existent, that's honorable. Let's correct.
Let me make my point. You see,
it's non-existent.
You can just note it down. I get you the chance.
You see, as we speak today, we do not have any levy known as levy for street lighting. We don't.
On our electricity bill.
Yeah, we don't have a levy for street lighting. What we have is ESLA. So if you come and tell me you mention ESLA, that's the energy sector levy. You mention that and you don't touch it. then you go and mention another levy which doesn't exist, and you say you are reducing that component. It's deception.
Are you saying that Dr. Alolo's document here?
No, I don't understand.
I say the source document here is what I'm criticizing.
Okay.
So the first thing is that it is this document that I'm criticizing.
I think Dr. Alolo has an issue.
I don't understand honorables. I don't know honorables' understanding of the ESLA. The ESLA has different components. There are different levies consolidated together, which becomes ESLA. So when you reduce a component of it, even by 1% margin, it will affect the entire rate that you pay. I have the energy sector reports here, levy reports here, which has been presented to Parliament, and Honorable will have the privilege of reviewing it. There are different levies that makes up the ESLA, and we have reduced two of those levies by different percentage margins. And you are telling me we haven't reduced the ESLA?
Why did
the
PDP take it off as promised in the build-up to election 2016?
Like I said earlier, we have a 4-year mandate, and we never said we're going to fulfill all our campaign promises in 1 year. It's a progressive thing, and we have taken on a very good start. We have a very good, solid, excellent start. Some components off, so and relieving the Ghanaians by a lot of taxes. The poor carry on the streets. We don't have to pay.
No, let's be honest. So it means that in the next year, 2, 3, we could have the whole
ESLA reduced. Yeah,
taking
various components of it could be reduced.
I think that is explanatory enough.
Look, there's no clear indication that the ESLA is going to be reduced or removed, and I'm going to tell you why. You know, I was trying to look for the quotation. You see, the finance minister, in his own report to Parliament, had indicated that they were streamlining the ESLA to ensure that they will use it to retard the indebtedness to the energy sector. This is not an indication of the fact that they are going to take off the ESLA. So
the ESLA hasn't been scrapped this year. It has been reduced. It has been reduced, so there's still a component of the ESLA which will be streamlined. You wouldn't say because we have reduced.
You see the deception I was talking to you about?
It's not deception.
Okay, but maybe in the course of the discussion we'll go on.
So I'm grateful, but of course let's quickly jump to other areas too. Mr. Bawa, initially you said, of course, there were some winners in the budget. The taxes that were taken off, which one would you refer to as the winners that you were talking about?
I hope I will do winners and do losers, because it's important to do both, otherwise you don't get a full picture. Obviously, yesterday, when they indicated that taxes were taken off spare parts, based on the monitoring I got, you realize that Busokan people were excited.
Right.
People in Swami and Kumasi were excited. If I were to be in their shoes, I will be excited. But what is the other side of it? The other side of it is that we are exposing our country to environmental hazards. Because you have situations where people can come in with dismantled cars, maybe about 10, 15, 20 years old cars, parts, they bring them. There's an environmental aspect to it. The country risks having to face issues of dumping. That is one area you have to look at. But of course, the people are happy.
How would you react to your critics who say that is a political talk?
What is political about what I have just said? What is political about it? Is it not true that if you have a vehicle, if you have a mechanical that goes beyond a particular age limit, there's tendency for pollution that has an impact on health? Is it not true that disposing of such materials, even in the West, is very difficult, and therefore to be able to deal with them, they can dump them in Ghana? Is it not true? So I am not playing politics with this. It is clear. So it's science.
For your government, the duties were there to check this.
Yeah,
not necessarily to make.
Yes, part of it was it. That's why even when you even look in terms of the duty you pay on your vehicles, when it goes beyond a particular age, this 10 years, there's a heavy penalty on it. The heavy penalty is not because of you, the individual. It's because of the environment. It's because of the health of Ghanaians.
Not the state just
doing it for the sake of it. But it's just because of the health of Ghanaians. It is because of the environment. So if you do this, you are exposing that. Again, the winners may also be, unfortunately or fortunately, people within their party. And I'm going to tell you why. You do know that the majority leader himself in his vetting had indicated that he was dealing, before he came to Parliament, he was dealing with spare parts, and that he was making more money as a spare parts dealer as compared to being an MP. You remember the vetting? I'm not the one saying it. I'm just telling you the people who are the winners in that. But the downside of it, you see, the other one they talk about has to do with Kaye, which is supposed to be quote-unquote winners. Master, how do you, again, scrap a levy or a tax that does not exist at that particular level? And I'm going to tell you why. Normally, the finance minister will come with a bill of taxes and levies that is approved by parliament. If you go and look at it, there's no tax on Kaye.
There's no national tax
on Kaye. What we do have is that local assemblies impose levies and taxes. So you go to my village in Bongo, this assembly in Bongo would say that if you were to do XYZ in the we would collect, maybe my grandfather has gone with his fowl into the market. They give you what they call lampo. You know, you've heard the word lampo.
Right.
They collect that. So you come to the National Assembly and indicate that you are scrapping that. Meanwhile, in the first place, we do not have, in terms of our taxes and levies that you brought for approval before. There's nothing like that for tax on Kayais.
So this one goes to the assembly for approval.
So the assembly, the national level. So it doesn't really exist. So, but in any case, the Kaya people were excited. So I can't prevent them from being happy. You understand? Let's look at those who are losing out on this in this particular thing. You realize that the finance minister had put a cap on all earmark funds. Statutory funds. So you had District Assembly Common Fund, you had the NHIS, you had all, because there are about 9 thereabout. What it simply means is that the portion of District Assembly Common Fund that goes to all assemblies is going to reduce. That's the first thing. Now, about 85% of district assemblies depend heavily on the District Assembly Common Fund because of their revenue base, their internally generated revenue. If you take a place like Bongo, because the economic activities in that area is not huge, you have a situation that in terms of revenue generation itself may not be very high, and therefore we depend heavily on this Assembly's Common Fund for provision of water, for sometimes building of cheap compounds and clinics, for sometimes building schools. Now you are limiting the district assembly's capacity to do that. You have the NHIS. Indeed, right, and I know you have been in the media for long and you have followed all this discourse. That if you look at the NHIS, one of the major problems with the NHIS had to do with funding gap. Beyond just the fact that the statutory funds were not being transferred to the NHIS, there was also a funding gap because at the time the funding sources were identified, utilization was about 500,000. Now we have a utilization of about 25 million. Then we are trying to see how do we get other funding sources to plug up that gap. Then you go and put a cap of 25% on in terms of this into all earmark funds.
So these are the losers.
So you know, and you know who are those? Look, I don't know whether you have NHIS card. Do you have NHIS card?
I have.
You have. We thank God. Go to your day and ask most people who can afford. Most people who have NHIS card are not the people. Because there are people who will not even go for that. They just go to their private house and they pay. Those who really patronize that, other people cannot afford. Then you are still trying to make the NHIS not being very strong to really to support this. These are the losers we are talking about.
Let me go to Dr. Lolo. So he just outlined some losers, but I guess you boxed the two.
I want to respond to what Honorable has said. With regards to removal of taxes on spare parts, making Ghana
a dumping ground for
I'm really surprised Honorable is making such statements. When those taxes were in place, when they were taking the money, why didn't they just ban it? That no spare parts in Ghana because it will be an environmental hazard for the country, or it will be a dumping because they were making money out of it. So they were not thinking about the environmental aspect of it. Now that we are scrapping the levies to bring relief for the businessmen or the private sector, now you are saying it will be, that is a pure political talk, to be honest with you. That is a non-starter. With regards to the KIA tax, yes, there is no national levy on KIA, but the district assemblies, like he rightly alluded to, imposes some taxes on the KIA. So government, in collaboration with the district assemblies, would abolish that tax. That is what we are doing. What about
districts that do not have KIA?
They don't pay already, so there's nothing to abolish. If they don't pay KIA, there's nothing to abolish.
Because
those who pay,
in my district,
those who have implemented,
I don't see any KIA. What I see are people who just put a table by the roadside and put some few oranges on it and sell. Perhaps what they pay is what will be abolished?
As simple as the thing is on Kai. Those are those that they've actually implemented a levy to take from them. Okay. And the abolition is for them. Those districts that have kind of implemented that policy. So government in collaboration with the district will do that. With regards to the losers, Honorable has just made an unfortunate comment about the capping of the statutory fund. I will give him the benefit of the doubt. Possibly he hasn't got the time to read through the entire budget. What the budget seemed to do, or what the idea of the capping, you know, like the Honorable Finance Minister said yesterday, statutory funds and earmark funds take over 30% of the...
33%.
Yeah, that's what I said, over 30% of revenue.
Yes.
And one way or the other, most of the time, these funds are not even transferred to those earmarks. They don't get to the where it's supposed to. And Honorable has just made a point that the District Assembly Common Fund, they will lose out because they have a mandatory percentage.
Some districts depend on it because of their revenue.
Actually, most districts, or almost all districts, what this is meant to do is, when we cap the 25% on all the statutory funds, immediately, those bodies, like the District Assembly Common Fund, that are constitutionally mandated not to have less than 5% of tax revenue, will immediately transfer to them to make up for their constitutional mandates. That is one. And government will prioritize certain areas, and NHIS is one of the priorities. The fiscal space that has been created will be used to fund priority areas like NHIS, which Honorable has alluded to, that it is for the most vulnerable, the very poor people in our communities who are on this policy. And for the past years, it's all over the media, and it's a fact that the NHIS has not been very functional. It's not been very functional, primarily due to funds, lack of funds, and it's a priority for the government. So capping of these earmark funds to a large extent, NHIS will be a large beneficiary of that. So there is nothing like NHI is going to lose out on it. It's wrong. It's not true.
Right. Right. Just a quick one on that.
I wanted you to deal with the winners, but a quick one, then I'll get it.
It's true. What he just said, that's what the finance minister said. The finance minister said, look, if you look at based on 2016 figures, that in terms of
2016,
I'm just based on 2016. We are using the 2016 as a basis. About 33% of our total revenue went into earmark funds. They want to cap it. When you cap it, basically what you are saying that irrespective of whatever happens, you are not going, because if you look at the various components, there are specific percentages that go to them. For example, if you take the petroleum funds, we say that 30% of it, because you have 21% going to stabilization, you have 9% going to heritage. Now, he talks of the District Assembly's Common Fund. The District Assembly's Common Fund, even though constitutionally it says that you should not go below 5%, what has been approved and what is currently going is 7.5%. So you don't just get up and say, because the constitutional injunction says that you shouldn't go below 5%. So, oh yes, you are going to do and make sure that they don't go and they get what you have not, because there has not been any indication that these statutory funds, in terms of the percentages that go there, then you want to change it. Because the finance minister didn't do it, unless maybe he has some other information that I don't know.
Okay.
But based on what he said, we don't have that.
So
it is important to just...
You see, the constitutionally allocated percentage that DACF is supposed to get, they will get that. There's no argument about that. Immediately after the campaign, they will get that.
So it means that...
And you know, this issue, this... fiscal issue that we've been complaining about that in a while. And Honorable Finance Minister mentioned it yesterday. The previous government, they've always been complaining it. But the problem is they never found an innovative way of creating a fiscal space, which is what we have done. We have found a very innovative way of creating space to invest in government priority areas.
I'll show you the innovation you have created.
Yeah, that's what we have done. Yes. The capping of the statutory funds. That is one way of creating some space to invest in government priority areas.
So they allow you to have money to spend.
Yeah, we cannot just continue borrowing. We cannot continue borrowing to fund priority projects. We have to create some space, and we need to do that in a very innovative way, which is why we have come out to cap. You know, when these earmark funds were being implemented, they were all implemented at different stages of like different years. So nobody actually really sat down to think of its implication on the revenue. And we have realized that over time it's taking a chunk of the revenue. So we need to do something to create some space to prioritize government projects, which is what we have done. We have capped them, and it doesn't mean that they are going to... to a large extent, some of them might even get more than they were allocated to, because government is going to prioritize based on the needs or at a particular point in time.
I see. All right. Let's move on. Mr. Bawa, so the finance minister says we are looking at another way of running the economy. So we are moving away from the taxation. We're going into production. And like Dr. Lolo said, that is to create that fiscal space for government to be able to work well. Your government basically relied on taxation to run the economy. They said relied on borrowing to run the economy.
And
taxation. They said they will borrow, but smart borrowing. Now, that is good news if we are to take a look at what the previous government did.
Let me tell you something. When they talk about smart, before I even say, when you say smart, that's why I started laughing. Tell me what is going to be different from what Honorable Satakpa did. You have a situation where you have invested about $1 billion on the gas processing plant. It is supposed to pay for itself. Tell me it's not smart borrowing. You have a situation where you have invested about $2 billion in the health sector in terms of increasing the bed numbers to 6,000 by 2018. Tell me that is not smart borrowing. You have a situation where you have expanded our airport. I mean, you have traveled this past year. You've seen the airport, Kotoka and other things. These things are going to pay for themselves. Tell me that is not smart borrowing. So they should spare us this whole idea of smart borrowing. What is more important, and you have indicated that they have realigned. In my opinion, what they've done, they've successfully scammed us. And I'll tell you what I'm saying.
I see. I'm sure because
yes, they've successfully scammed us. You know, if you listen to the finance minister, he spoke about making sure that they were moving from taxation to production.
Right.
You remember? And that in doing that, they still want to also maintain they still also want to ensure that their manifesto pledges are being followed. Right. I know we'll go to any SHS, so you leave that one. Soon. Let's look at this. Anybody who was going to vote in my village, in Bongo. Me, I always use Bongo because that's where I was. You know, all the elections for about 2 months, I was in my village. So that's where I was. So I used my village. Anybody who was going to vote in Bongo and intended voting for Nanado knew very clearly in his mind that Nanado had indicated that for every constituency, you're going to get $1 million. He had said that. That for every district, you're going to get one district.
One factory.
One district, one factory. Yeah. And that for every village, you're going to get one dam.
In the northern region?
In the northern sector. Yeah, of course, I come from the north, so that's why I'm using north. You're going to get one dam. I'm not talking of a dugout, a dam. These were stand-alone promises. So I knew that if these were the 3 packages available to me. Let me tell how they have scammed us.
Have started to
no, let me tell how they have scammed. And then again, excuse me. They had also I'll come to you. And they had also indicated that we're going to have the 3 belts, the development belts. Yes. That's the Northern Development Authority, the middle, and then the coastal.
Which were in the budget.
Yes, they were in the budget. But I'm going to tell how they scammed us. What they did was that they said, look, we are going this year to implement the 1 million one constituency. They have indicated that. Right. In fact, the finance minister goes beyond that to then do the conversion from 1 million. That's a 4.3. He goes to million Ghana cedis. Then he quickly then asks, that is what is going to be used in partnering for our one district, one factory. You understand? That is what is going to be used because it talks about the agricultural sector and other things. The one village, one dam issue. Tell me this is not a scam. Was that what the Ghanaians said they wanted? You had indicated very clearly that you were going to give me a district, a factory, you were going to give me a dam, and you were going to give me 1 million as a constituency. You have not taken that particular one and bottled it all into one. Tell me this is not a scam.
This is a misconception by Honorable Bawa, and I think it's a deliberate misconception.
No, because
yes. We promised we're going to give each constituency $1 million for the 4-year period, which we have done because it's coming this year. And we also said we are going to set up 3 development authorities. That is the Northern Development Authority. So that will be transformed to take on its original mandate and make it more effective. And we are having the Middle Belt and the Coastal Development Authority. These 3 development authorities, there will be the implementation body for the $1 million per constituency. So let's say the northern sectors, I think we have about 50-something constituencies. So that Northern Development Authority, they will have $57 million per year. And out of that money, they decide on which projects they want to do. They decide, every constituency will decide on the projects they want to do. If there is a village in the constituency needs a dam, why can't it be created from that?
So the $1 million will be used to create the dam?
No, it's not necessarily will be used to create a dam, but they can decide to create a dam from that funds because it's meant for their development, infrastructure development. So they can decide to use it to do that. But with regards to one district, one factory, that allocation for one district, one factory under the development authority, it's not necessarily for them to use to develop a factory in a district. The idea of this one, it will be private sector driven. So if, for instance, a private person comes in and the development authority wants to partner with the private sector, which is the development authority will be representing government, wants to partner with the private sector to develop a factory in a particular district or constituency, they will be able to do that with part of their funds that has been allocated to them because it is meant for infrastructure development at the local level. So they determine what infrastructure they want to use it for. If they decide to use it to do a dam, to do a factory, to do whatever infrastructure for their own benefit, what is the problem with that? There's nothing somehow about it.
So how much does it cost? How much? Look, just look at it.
One way or the other, we are providing the dams, we are providing the factories, which is coming under the. The 1 million is meant for infrastructure development.
Let's make it 4.5 million. How much does it cost to put up a dam, just a normal dam? I'm not saying a dugout, a dam. You have 4.5 million. That is supposed to serve as the seed money for the development authority in any case. Because that's exactly why. Because that's what you are going to hear. It's the development authority that's supposed to disburse it. The district has to apply and indicate that we want to use it. And there are areas, specific areas they intend using those monies for.
No, the areas are not limited to that. They can decide.
The finance minister didn't say otherwise.
They are not limited to that. They can decide to do any project that is of benefit to the constituency, to the community. The community can, because all the projects will be done in consultation with the community. All so they come out with the projects they want, and the development authority invest in it.
Let's shift to the Free Senior High School. 400 million cedis for takeoff, as promised by the president. We also told about other things, but Dr. Adolo, the 400 million cedis is for the new entrance, and that is where concerns have been raised. That the thinking was that it was going to be free for all, first, second, third years.
No, the free SHS will actually start with intake, 2017 intake. The fresh students who are coming in 2017 from September.
Was that the promise?
Yeah, that is the promise.
So that was the promise.
The promise was to have free education for all. But we are starting from the first years, and progressively, every SHS students wouldn't have to pay anything for education, for their secondary education.
At the end of the third year, would have covered every.
At the end of the third year, we would have covered all stages of the SHS. So, but for this year, it starts with the 2017 intake, which is from September. That is where it starts from. So, progressively, before we finish our term, all senior high students will be covered. They wouldn't have to pay anything.
You're not worried about the concerns from your critics that you promised that every SS student will have free secondary education?
Yes, but we have started implementing it. That is the promise. Within our 4-year term, every free SHS student will have free education. Every SHS student will have free education. They wouldn't have to pay within our 4-year period. From 2017 to 2020, no student in SHS will have to pay anything for their education.
I see. Mr. Bob, even before the budget...
that is a promise that we have actually fulfilled.
Your side of parliament had raised concerns about this when the president hinted of the new entrants being the first to get the free senior high school.
You see, again, this is yet another scam. And I'm going to explain to you. You remember that run out to the elections, there were 2 schools of thought, and it was based on certain facts that we had. Let me even just use the 2015-2016 academic year. You have, on that particular, you have about 433,000 kids who finished JHS to go to SSS. Out of this figure, research suggests that about 50% of them do not go to SSS, mainly because of access, and part of it being because of affordability. indeed, if you look at the figures, about 40% of them do not go just because they don't have direct access to the school. And the other about 10% is as a result of affordability. The NDC government said that on the basis of that, you see, because if you want to introduce free education, the person must have direct access to the school to enjoy that free education. Only school, you understand my point? If you are not in the school, how do you get the free education? So you must first have a physical structure that the kids can walk into. Then they can access that. So the NDC said, whilst we push in more access, we would also progressively make SHS free. And so all boarding schools, all day schools were free. And that's why you had about 340,000 kids on the free SHS. And then government was now gradually taking some components of the boarding school out in terms of taking them, but there were some they were going to.
Taking everything.
Oh, no, hold on. So it was progressive. Right. Now listen to what the MPP said. The MPP said, no, one, we are redefining basic education to mean from kindergarten to SSS.
Right.
And that it is going to be free because already FQ makes JSS free. You know about constitution is a constitutional injunction.
So it's already free.
So the SHS was going to be free. So anybody in Bongo who was going to vote for Nanado knew that if I had a child His Excellency President Nanado, if anybody was going to vote for His Excellency President Nanado, or then Nanado, the candidate, knew that I'm going to vote because my child who is in SS1 is going to SS2, and therefore I will pay. The one who is in SS2 is going to SS3. He's going to be free because their constitution uses the word all. Suddenly, they come. And one of the reasons we gave for this was because of funding sources and other things. They come and tell you that, we are introducing, but we are starting from SHS1. Tell me, what is the difference between that and what the NDC was doing? Meanwhile, because you had indicated that
everything on the card now is free.
It's free. Not just the minute components that you chose.
Listen to me.
No, you chose.
I said that. Listen to what I said.
There's a vast difference.
No,
don't go that line at all.
For the day schools.
Because there's a vast difference.
Every component. You see, and I'll tell you why we did that. And basically,
for we is both day students and boarding students.
Hold on.
If you ask what the difference is,
but it's still progressive.
So let me make my point. For us, all components are abolished.
Let me make my point.
They wouldn't pay anything.
Research has suggested that for the secondary education, most of the people who are found in day schools invariably come from very poor homes, as compared to those who go to boarding schools. The reason being their first, even the boarding items they want and they can't
afford it.
So research suggests that the day schools. So we wanted to start from the most vulnerable. As at the day schools, there was about 340,000. They were not paying anything on that list. That is the first thing I want to make. So you are not doing. Excuse me. Hold on.
Ask what the difference is.
Yeah, so hold on.
There's a big
so you get the point. So
we're
targeting that first. It's progressive. True or false? You were kicking against the whole idea of progressive. Indeed, the framers of the Constitution, knowing the limitations of our resources, decided to talk about the fact that secondary and tertiary education should be progressively free. Article 25 B and C.
Right.
So they had made that clear. You said, if we eliminated corruption, if we make sure that
we are doing, that's why we are having a lot of revenue projections for our budget.
Listen, you said if we eliminated corruption, if we ensure that our petroleum revenues were used properly,
which will be done.
If we looked at, for example, and in fact they had identified the sources of identified the sources of funding. They had talked about 50% slash on the capitalization to GNPC. They had talked about 40% on Get Fund. They had talked about using the petroleum funds.
Where are you getting all that information from?
Go and look at Jambafo's paper that he presented.
Where are you getting all that information from?
I'll get you to react.
I am making this point on the basis of what you had said in 2016 and what you are saying now. That you are speaking from two sides of your mouth.
We are not. We are not.
You had indicated that this is the case.
We are not.
So yesterday when they read the budget, indeed, and I'm being sincere, I had calls from my village. They said, Honorable, they said that the school fees was going to be free for all of us. I know me as an MP, I was excited that it was going to be free. You know why? There are people who genuinely do not have access. They can't pay for their kids.
So why didn't you advocate for them when you were empowered?
So
you should have done that.
That's why I'm advocating for it now.
Why didn't you do it?
I'm advocating for it now.
A few months ago, you could have done it.
You have successfully scammed Ghanaians. You have scammed Ghanaians.
The promise was, in our 4-year mandate period, no student
what you have just done is progressive and not entirely free.
It's free. it's entirely free for students who are coming in 2017.
Okay.
But within the 4-year mandate, it will be entirely free for
Okay, so
all
by the
students.
end of the fourth
By the
year.
end of the 4th year, it will be entirely
So what
free
is
for
the
all
difference between
students.
yours and what we're doing?
Because what you were doing, there was not even timeline to it. You said you were doing progressive free, and you take some components of it, and they were still paying fees. They were still paying fees.
I'm grateful. Unfortunately, gentlemen, we'll have to end it here. I'm grateful for your time. Edward Bauer is a member of Parliament for Bulga, member of the NDC. Dr. Mutaka Lulu is a member of the NPP. Grateful for your Friday. Wish you a great weekend.